Welcome. On the news today, Olise Agbakoba tells President Tinubu that Biafra can never be defeated by Nigeria and that the unity of Nigeria is negotiable. Also that the use of force is very much primitive and unnecessary. Also, Omoyele Sowore also made mention that the reason Nnamdi Kanu is still kept in DSS custody is that they are trying just to punish him and nothing else, that he has no case with the Nigerian government. It's just a case of political punishment. Let us listen to them.
But in a situation of a political arrangement such as Nigeria's, the first question is, just like I have a wife, do I want to be married? Question number one. So in Nigeria, do we want to be one? It's an assumption that we want to be. It's a terribly big and wrong assumption, because when I went to Croatia, Croatia was part of the 6 countries that formed Yugoslavia. Right now they're doing very well. Macedonia is doing very well. Slovenia is doing very well. Slovakia is doing very well. So nothing says that we must be one country. Nothing. It's not sacrosanct that we must be one country. If in being one country you have all the killings you have in Jos, in Abuja, everywhere, what's the point being one country?
Now, before we go ahead to listen to the full video, I want you to understand that on the 29th, on the 30th, and on the 31st is sit at home, compulsory sit at home, to respect the fallen heroes and also to vote for referendum. The vote is ongoing. Just in 6 hours, we have recorded today, just today, we recorded a total of 1,330,000 votes just in 6 hours in the beginning. So before the end of today, there will be massive millions of people who have voted, and before we get to the end of the second phase of this voting, we must have amassed a very wonderful massive number of votes. We want you to go out there and vote. They are pulling units in Biafra land and they are voting massively. We are using this period of sit at home to vote, and the 3-day sit at home that is coming, we are going to also vote massively before the end of this month. So take that opportunity, take this initiative to go out there and cast your vote. Protection is there, 100% protection is there. The men of the Biafra Liberation Army are well stationed in various strategic positions to make sure that no evil spirit tries to gain access into that territory. Now let us listen to Olise Agbakoba.
From the office of Biafra Republic Government in Exile, His Excellency Prime Minister Mazi Simon Ekpa officially announced the 3-day sit at home across Biafra land. Every Biafran is encouraged to utilize this opportunity in order to participate in the ongoing self-referendum exercise. Kindly inform your friends and family that the votes we cast during this exercise will facilitate the freedom that we are seeking for. Let's continue voting massively before the 2nd day of December 2024, when Biafran independence will be redeclared by our Prime Minister Mazi Simon Ekpa. Please note that the 29th of May will be the first day of our sit at home exercise, while the 30th May will be the remembrance day for our fallen heroes and heroines. Also on the 31st day of May, which happens to be the last day in this segment of sit at home exercises, will be a ghost town across Biafra land. Biko ndị be anyị, ndị nne na ndị nna, ndị na-etorugo ogo ịtụ vote, ndị na-erugo afọ 18 bi na mpaghara Biafra ọbụla, biko jiri na ọkwa dị oke mkpa wee mere ihe maka nnwere onwe anyị na-abịa n'oge na-adịghị anya.
This is about a foundation. A country that has been struggling with a foundation for 23 years cannot be a serious country. And there has to be a need for some speed. So the 10th Assembly must immediately address this problem of continuous talking about Nigeria. Remember what Olise said about the survival of Nigeria, and it rings, because I was there that day, it still rings in my head. But in a situation of a political arrangement such as Nigeria's, the first question is, just like I have a wife, do I want to be married? Question number one. So in Nigeria, do we want to be one? It's an assumption that we want to be. It's a terribly big and wrong assumption, because when I went to Croatia, Croatia was part of the 6 countries that formed Yugoslavia. Right now they're doing very well. Macedonia is doing very well. Slovenia is doing very well. Slovakia is doing very well. So nothing says that we must be one country. Nothing. It's not sacrosanct that we must be one country. If in being one country you have all the killings you have in Jos, in Abuja, everywhere, what's the point being one country? So that's why, in looking at President Tinubu's governance program, I would remind him of a structural engineer who says, I can't build this house, I can't build Nigeria on the basis of a weak governance structure. It is the most important and fundamental process if you want a country to grow. So Nigeria's governance structure is very weak. The first is, any nation not at peace, and I always like to use the analogy of marriage. If, for instance, every day you get up and you and your wife are fighting, you cannot have peace, and you cannot think about how to develop. So the first thing we have to do in Nigeria is we have to organize peace. Because if we don't organize peace and security, you can't have good governance. So that is the step number 1. And I also made the point at the lecture that to continue to do the same thing with the same result is a mistake. We cannot resolve our problem by military solution. It will not happen. Quote me. If we continue on this path to deploy the military, deploy resources, I don't even know how much has been spent by the military in acquiring armaments, we can't win. And the simple reason is you don't use military solutions for what is called irregular warfare. Where do you find these Boko Haram people or the bandits? So military option will not give Nigeria peace. Rather, what you need is to go back and say, before 1914, who were the owners of Nigeria? When you invite those who were owners of Nigeria, Benin Kingdom in the Guinness Book of Records has the largest man-made structure in the world. The wall they built is bigger than the Chinese wall. People don't know this. So that is an extremely old empire. And the man who sits on that throne, the Oba, controls a humongous amount of political power. Then you count the emirs, you count my own OB, yet you exclude them from the process of development is a huge error. It's a huge error. So this is what we need to do. We need to bring in all these guys. We need to bring in Ohaneze, Pandef, Arewa, Afenifere. These are the people that will shape Nigeria and give us political peace for development. So that's the first point on governance, on political governance. Then the second point on governance concerns the issue of what is the proper constitution that we need to have, because all the constitutions we've had have been imposed, right from the colonial to the military to the one that General Abdulsalam imposed, and then the one the National Assembly is now conducting, and it has taken them 23 years. I think that's a very long time for us to have a constitution that no one even believes and respects. So I looked up, I did some research, and I found late Professor Nwabeze's theory on a new constitution very interesting. He says that the National Assembly may not be, and I repeated it to President Akpabio, may not be aware of the nature of their powers. So I pointed out that the National Assembly has 3 legislative powers. The first is the National Assembly sitting as the House of Assembly of the federal government. The second is the National Assembly sitting as the House of Assembly of the FCT. Then the third is the National Assembly sitting as the House of Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is a power they've never used. So Nwabeze suggests that they could use that to just establish a new constitution. all they need to do is to consult people. The constitution people don't understand is not as sacrosanct as it sounds, because it's an act that attaches the schedule. So one person suggests just delete the schedule, that's the current constitution, and add a new one. So all these discussions that have been taking place, write up something that is agreeable, send it around Nigeria, and once it's accepted, you go to the National Assembly, invoke the powers of Section 4, subsection 1, and then exchange. This happened when the Republican Constitution was established. The Parliament removed, by deletion, the Independence Constitution, and they put the Republican Constitution in exactly 1 day. Our National Assembly has spent 23 years. Because if you don't have the foundation, you can't go anywhere. So we don't have security. Our political foundation is weak. Our constitutional foundation is weak. Two vital instruments for development. The judiciary is, as in my 45 years, never been as low as this. Even the Supreme Court, John Okoro, castigated the appeal court for a terrible judgment where they removed virtually everybody in the plateau political system. So we can't grow if we have a weak judiciary. And therefore, the only way to go is to break up this mafia in the Supreme Court. We have to break it up. It's like saying, you know what? No woman in Nigeria shall be entitled to political office. That's what they've done to us in the judiciary. No lawyer is entitled. It's only them. They create a mafia, block us out, and appoint themselves. Incestuous relationship. So they can't be their best. So I recommended to the National Assembly to understand the difference between administration of justice. That's why judges take note and write. Versus judicial administration. In respect of judicial administration, the National Assembly can intervene. I could see President Agbakoba looking a bit puzzled when I was making that point. I said, are you sure we can do this? Of course, because already there are laws. There's the Federal High Court Act, which sets out how judges should come to the court, how they should be composed. The only thing the Constitution says is you must be 15 years to be a Supreme Court judge, nothing else. So we need a law, the Supreme Court Appointment Act or whatever, to regulate the appointment of and the composition of the courts. In the case of some of the courts, it specifies that a person learned in Sharia law and customary law must be part of it. So why should somebody who is from the bar not be considered in the composition? To keep excluding the bar and the academics will result in a weak judicature.
Very, very wonderful submission by Olise Agbakoba. Very pertinent points being pointed out and very meticulously pointed out. But then again, I have a problem with this. Why do I have a problem with his submission? Mazi Simon Ekpa will always say it that we need to reason beyond what we see physical. We need to reason beyond what we see physical. That what you don't know is bigger than you. Now, this is not about what you don't know is bigger than you. It is what you now know. What you now know. The people who have done us this evil are still in power. They are the ones in control of this power. Those members of the House of Assembly, Federal House of Assembly, they are involved. They are the one enjoying all these benefits you are talking about. How then do you want them to make a law, overturn everything against themselves? It is not possible. Now, if you ask them that the peoples of Nigeria are tired of poor welfare, very, very poor welfare, that the minimum wage is 30,000 and very, very minute compared to a senator who will just go and sit down a day and will receive up to 30 million naira, whereas an average worker would work for a month and will not be paid up to 30,000 naira. That is to tell you the disconnect between the very rich the powerful and wealthy people and the normal citizens of the country. It is unbelievable. It is unacceptable. There should be a level of balance between the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. It shouldn't be a very big difference, but in this country it is a very humongous difference, a very mighty difference, that you see that one person's salary in 100 years, the other person can never make it. That is abnormal, that is absurd, that is unbelievable and unacceptable. And so the people who are involved in doing this to the poor masses are the ones you are calling upon to make changes. This is not possible. They will not want to make those changes to affect themselves. And so what do people do? They run away. And that is what Omoyele Sowore will talk about now. I would like to allow Omoyele Sowore to speak so that you will hear from his own side of the story. Let us listen.
What we know is that Nnamdi Kanu is being held hostage on behalf of the famed unity of Nigeria. That's what it's all about. It's as simple as that. If you mention his name in certain circles, they don't want to hear it because they feel like he threatens the real estate called Nigeria. And his Igbo makes it worse because Nigeria's DNA hates the Igbo for attempting, in the 60s and, towards the end of the 70s, to leave a country they said is no longer favorable to their existence. But I keep saying, and I will repeat here again, is there any Nigerian out there in their majority who has not mentally seceded from Nigeria? Not many. That's why people are living in droves. Each time you get on a plane leaving this country is full, each time it's coming back, probably full too, but it is those who are coming back to pack their things that are coming back. That's the way I describe it. But the truth is that Nnamdi Kanu has been held hostage. He was abducted from Kenya, extraordinary rendition. The fact that he's kidnapped from Kenya could not be explained shows that any judicial pronouncement or process after that is null and void. You cannot go and kidnap somebody and bring them before a court. And the courts have made it very clear, even up to the Supreme Court, that he did not jump bail. It was the military that went to his house to kill people, and then he escaped. And now you have brought him back, you ought to respect and restore his bail. That's what I told his lawyers. Why are you applying for bail again? Because the Supreme Court made all the pronouncements except releasing him. And I think it was because they were afraid. And that's why I said he's a hostage to this country. And like you rightly said, there are other people who have made even more egregious pronouncements and fought and carried arms in this country. And you have not treated them the same way because they're not Nnamdi Kanu's their name don't sound East. And I'm not here to fetish being able, but the reality is that they are not treated fairly, and Nnamdi Kanu is part of the reason why that is clear to everybody.
Right.
And by the way, I must also reveal here that there are some Igbo elites who are behind this. Whenever there's a crime of conspiracy against freedom fighters, there are people inside and outside who are working together.